Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Mrs. Ezine and today I'll be lecturing you on the models and theories of health behavior change. Don't go anywhere. So if you're new to my channel, this channel is all about helping students to succeed in the university through educational tips and tutorials. Just scroll through my channel and you can watch the videos there, and I can assure you it will help you a lot. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell to be notified of any new posts. Now this video has been today's video is specifically made for public health students for the course Psychological Basis for Health Behavior and Change Process. Now, this is a lecture series and this is part 5 of that lecture series. So if you haven't watched part 1 to 4, I'll tell you to just go to my channel page now and click on it. I've created a playlist specifically for this course. Okay, so just go ahead and watch from lecture 1 to lecture 4 before you watch this video so that you can keep up with what I have to say in today's video. If you have any question, please leave it in comment section below and I'll try my very best to answer it. And you can also send me a direct message on WhatsApp and I'll also answer it. We just prefer it down here on YouTube's comment section so that others can see and also benefit from the answer that will be given. Thank you.
Now, enough talking, let's head over to the lecture.
Now remember, our last topic for lecture 4 was health behavior. For today's lesson, we'll be looking at models and theories of health behavior change. Now, the most successful public health programs and initiatives are based on an understanding of health behaviors and the context in which they occur. Therefore, interventions to improve health behavior can be best designed with an understanding of relevant theories of behavior change and the use and the ability to use them skillfully. Okay, so the health programs that we come up with, that public health professionals, are based on health behavior change, are based on these theories of health behavior change. So we have about 4 to 5 models. We have the health belief model, the theory of planned behavior and theory of reasoned action, trans-theoretical model of change, and we have the social cognitive theory and the social ecological model. So the health programs that we deal on are based on these models and we are going to discuss about them. So number 1, the health belief model. It is a cognitive, dealing with the mind, okay, model which posits that behavior is determined by a number of beliefs, health belief model, about threats to an individual's well-being and the effectiveness and the outcomes of particular actions or behavior. It has to do with the individual's beliefs. It was developed to help understand why people did or did not use preventive services. Okay, some people, you say, okay, go for breast screening to detect cancer. Okay, some people go and do it immediately, you tell them, and some people don't, or some people take time to actually go and check if they have breast cancer. So it helps to understand why people do or do not use preventive services offered by public health departments since the 1950s, and it has evolved to address newer concerns in prevention and detection, e.g. mammography screening, breast cancer screening, influenza vaccines and others, as well as lifestyle behaviors such as sexual health behaviors and sexual risk behaviors and injury prevention. The HBM theorizes that people's beliefs about whether or not they are at risk for a particular disease or health problem and their perceptions of the benefits of taking action to actually avoid such illnesses influence their readiness to take action. Very interesting. Perceived threat is at the core of the health belief model, and it is linked to a person's readiness to actually take action. It consists of two sets of beliefs about an individual's perceived susceptibility or vulnerability to a particular threat like cancer, and the seriousness of the expected consequences that may result from it. So what are the core constructs of HBM? Number one, perceived susceptibility and perceived severity. Okay, the person will be saying, oh, what is, how susceptible am I to this particular disease, and what is actually the severity of it, what are the benefits I will gain from it, and what are the barriers that are actually there. Cues to action and self-efficacy. Now, the HBM has been most often applied for health concerns that are prevention related. It has to do with prevention. Okay, like I said, breast cancer screening or and asymptomatic such. Now, the HBM has been most often applied for health concerns that are prevention related and asymptomatic, such as early cancer detection like breast cancer and hypertension screening for high blood pressure, where beliefs are as important as or more important than overt symptoms. Now, the HBM is also clearly relevant to interventions to reduce risk factors for cardiovascular disease. Remember that cardiovascular disease is one of the top major public health problems in the world today. So we are really looking at interventions to reduce the risk factors, which will definitely reduce developing cardiovascular diseases. Okay, so this is how the health belief model looks like. We have the individual's perception, the modifying factors in the middle, and the likelihood of actions. So under the individual perception, you can see perceived susceptibility to disease X like cancer or perceived severity of that disease. We have the demographic variables, the age and the rest really that can affect the person's perceived threat of disease. And we also have the social psychological variables that can also affect the perceived threat of this disease. Now, we also have where we come in cues to action through our mass media campaigns, for example, breast screening campaigns to actually get people to go for screening to actually check if they have breast cancer or not, to reduce the risk associated with it. And we have advice from others, reminder, postcard, illness or family member. For example, if someone already has cancer in the person's family, and we have newspaper or magazine article making cues to action, making the person want to take an action on the disease, whether it's to go for breast screening or not to do anything at all leading to the likelihood of taking recommended preventive health action. This is the health belief model. Now let's go further and look at an example. Now, an example of cues to action. My brother has just had heart surgery. Okay, that's towards preventing cardiovascular diseases, and we can see that is the cue to action to stop to actually act on the perceived threat. Now, a stroke can be really serious. You can lose movement on one side of your body and have difficulty keeping balance for months after. This is perceived severity. How severe is the disease? What does the person see? How severe does the individual see that disease to be? Now, example of perceived benefits is, for example, if I follow my exercise schedule, I will reduce my risk of a heart attack, and I will also have more energy. Example of self-efficacy is that there is not much I can do to prevent a heart attack. If it's going to happen, then it will happen no matter what I do. And perceived susceptibility is I am in great health, so I don't have to worry about having a heart attack. Some people actually think about that. Okay, they will say, oh, they are healthy, and so therefore they don't really have to do anything to prevent that heart attack. So that's the perceived susceptibility. Most people, for example, when we talk to women about going for cervical cancer screening, they'll say, oh God, I can never be like that because, oh my God, God, I am connected to Jesus, for example. So my doctor asked me to go for some lab work for the past couple of months, and it has been crazy. Sorry, my doctor asked me to go for some lab work, but the past couple of months has been crazy, no time, so it can wait. This is an example of a perceived barrier. No time to actually go for the lab work, that is a barrier to that person. My wife keeps reminding me, of course, to go and see my doctor. A reminder, like your alarm clock, for example. Those are cues to action. Okay, so the next one is the theory of action and theory of planned behavior. Now, this was proposed by Hausen and Fishburne and suggests that behavior is determined by interventions, attitudes, and subjective norms, which are beliefs about other people's attitudes towards a particular behavior. Interesting. Now, this theory was later expanded to the theory of planned behavior, wherein perceived behavioral control, that's the belief about one's ability to perform a behavior, and behavioral intentions predicts behavior. Remember, we are trying to know why people take the intervention that we procure, and so that we tell them to take, and why some people don't actually take it or do them. Now, this theory of planned behavior evolved from the theory of reason action, which tells us that individual behavior is driven by behavior intentions, where behavior intentions are the function of three determinants. Number one, the individual's attitude towards behavior, the subjective norms, that's the environmental aspect, and the perceived behavioral control. In addition to the attitudes and the subjective norms that we have talked about, which comprise the theory of reasoned action, the theory of planned behavior's key contribution is the concept of perceived behavioral control. Some people actually believe that they can control their behavior, defined as an individual's perception of the ease or difficulty of actually performing a particular behavior, which can be influenced by the past experience the person has had, or the modeling the person has copied from someone, for example, or the expected support and potential obstacles. Now, this particular model, this theory predicts an individual's intention to engage in a behavior like smoking at a particular specific time and place. For example, a teenager developing that behavior of smoking during their teen years, and where at home, outside the home, or inside the home. Now, the behavioral control is similar to self-efficacy, and it depends on the individual's perception of how difficult it's going to be to actually engage in that behavior. Okay, if some people say, oh, going for cancer screening is quite difficult, or the line is there, or to actually get screened for a particular disease is difficult, then the person will likely not go for the screening. Okay, so what are the key constructs of this behavior? Number one, behavior intentions, which represent a person's motivation in the sense of his or her conscious plan or decision to actually perform a certain behavior. Generally, the stronger the intention is, the more likely the behavior will be performed. Usually, for example, before I get myself to do certain things, I have to imagine myself or actually motivate myself to actually do that thing. So, for example, if I'm going for immunization, like I recently had the tetanus vaccine given to me, I have to intentionally remember it and to will myself to actually go for it. So that is an example of behavior intention. Next is attitude towards that behavior. It refers to the degree to which a person has a positive or negative feeling of the behavior of interest. It entails a consideration of the outcomes of performing that behavior. So what is the outcome of me receiving tetanus immunization vaccine? For example, I'm trying to prevent my baby from having tetanus, or for me as a mother developing tetanus. So subjective norm, this refers to the belief about whether significant others like my family, like my close friends, think he or she will perform the behavior. It relates to a person's perception of the social environment surrounding the particular behavior. It relates to the person's belief about whether the peers and the people of importance to that person actually think he or she should engage in behavior. How many of your peers would like you to smoke with them, for example? That is a particular behavior. So this is part of the model. Now, the other one is the passive behavioral control we talked about. So this refers to the individual's perception of the extent to which the performance of the behavior is either easy or difficult. It increases when individuals perceive that they have more resources and confidence. For example, if you have more money, you know that you can actually go for some certain vaccines, for example, that actually need money to be paid. Recently, I found out here in Abia State, you need to pay for rotavirus vaccine, unlike some other states like Lagos. So if you have money, and I learned it's about 6,000 naira to actually get my child vaccinated for rotavirus. Now imagine people that don't have that amount, would they actually get vaccinated for rotavirus? Okay, so the above are the key constructs in both theory of planned behavior and theory of reasoned action. So TRA does not have perceived behavioral control in its construct. It just stops at subjective norms. So that is the major difference between both. Now, long-term changes the next one we're looking at is the trans-theoretical model of change. This is the third one. So long-term changes in health behavior involve multiple actions and adaptations over time. Some people may not be ready to attempt changes, while others may have already begun implementing such changes in their smoking, for example, their eating habits or activity levels. The construct of stage of change is the key element of the TTM of behavior change, and proposes that people are at different stages of readiness to adopt a healthful behavior, like quitting smoking, for example. Okay, so we get to see the example later. Now, the notion of readiness to change or stage of change has been examined in health behavior research. A research was carried out, and it was found useful in explaining and predicting changes for a variety of behaviors, especially like smoking, physical activity, and eating habits. Now, the stages of change is a heuristic model that describes a sequence of steps in successful behavior change. Remember, we're trying to get people from unhealthy behavior to a healthy behavior. So what are these steps in this model? Number one, we have pre-contemplation, we have contemplation, we have preparation, action, and maintenance. Now, the stages of this model can be used both to help understand where people at high risk for diabetes might not be ready to attempt behavioral change. For example, you know that an individual knows that they are above 50 or approaching 65, and they know that they're supposed to go and carry out some tests to actually find out their health status, and they don't want to do that, maybe because they feel it's not required. Okay, so might not be ready to attempt that behavioral change, because when you approach a certain age, your diet is supposed to change, okay, because your age requires it, and to improve the success of health counseling. So let's look at the stages. Now, pre-contemplation stage. Now, it means no recognition of need for or interest in the stage in change for the next 6 months. Okay, the person does not recognize, is not interested in changing their diet. Contemplation, the person has started thinking about changing their diet in the next 6 months. Preparation, the person has started planning. Oh, what will I buy? Let me draw up a diet plan. Oh, let me draw up what I'm going to eat, the market I will get, and order. Planning for change within the next month. Now, remember, the first two were using 6 months, and this one is within the next month. Now, action, adopting new habits. Okay, I'm going to be eating only twice a day, or if I'm eating 3 times, I won't eat more than 3 times. I'm not going to take fatty food, for example. I'm not going to eat sugary foods. I'm going to cut down on drinking soda. Adopting this for at least the next 6 months. Now, maintenance, ongoing practice of new healthier behavior. So for over 6 months, and chances to return to old behavior are really few. So as the person has started adopting, this new diet, this way of eating, the person has to do it over a long time, this healthy habit, and would likely not go back to eating fatty foods or drinking soda. Okay, so this is just the step. Very, very easy. Pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and what? Actual maintenance of the behavior. Now, this is the model. You can see the diagram. Number 1, no recognition of change, for or interest in the change, thinking about changing, planning for changing, adopting new habits, and ongoing practice. So it's a cycle. Okay, you look at it, it just goes that way. Now, people do not always move through the stages of change in a linear manner. Okay, it's not just straightforward. They often recycle and repeat certain stages. Okay, someone can, for example, now individuals may relapse, okay, and go back to an earlier stage depending on their level of motivation and self-efficacy. Okay, for example, now, after giving birth, some women are allowed start engaging in exercise because they want to lose their pregnancy fat. Okay, so they don't eat certain foods, they watch their diet, all that. Now immediately they lose that fat, okay, they can go back and say, okay, now it's all right to go back to eating hamburgers, or it's all right to go back to eating 2 cups of garri or something like that. So it's not just straightforward. Some people can actually relapse and go back and repeat certain stages. Most of us actually do that. So the key constructs of TTM is that stages of change, processes of change, decisional balance, self-efficacy, and temptation to actually go back to the beginning, to relapse. Okay, the next one is the social cognitive theory. Now, the cognitive formulation of social learning theory that has been best articulated by Bandura explains that human behavior in terms of a three-way dynamic reciprocal model in which personal factors, environmental influences, and behavior continually interact with each other. Now, it synthesizes that concepts and processes from cognitive, behavioristic, and emotional models of behavior change, so it can be readily applied to counseling intervention for disease prevention and management. Okay, so it has to do with these models of behavior, the cognitive, the behavioristic, and emotional models of change. Okay, so the basic premise of SCT is that people learn not only through their own experiences but also by observing the actions of others in their surrounding, and the results of such actions. Now, what are the key constructs? Okay, now we have observational learning. Remember, observe. Then we have reinforcement. Then we have self-control. Then we have self-efficacy. Now, so elements of behavior modification based on SCT constructs of self-control, reinforcement, and self-efficacy include goal setting. Okay, you set goals for yourself. Self-monitoring, are you actually maintaining or working towards your goals? And behavioral contracting. Goal setting and self-monitoring seem to be particularly useful components of effective interventions. Self-efficacy, or a person's confidence self-efficacy means a person's confidence in his or her ability to take action and to persist in that action taking despite the obstacles and challenges that might come along the way. It's especially important for influencing behavior change efforts. The key SCT construct of reciprocal determinism means that a person can be both an agent of change and a responder to change. Okay, the person can start the change and the person can respond to change. Thus, changes in the environment and the examples of role models and reinforcements can be used to actually promote healthier behavior. You will see that most some adverts actually use for example famous footballers to actually promote health. So if you see, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo actually eating something yummy, a fan will want to copy that particular behavior and respond to change and start eating that balanced diet or copying that particular habit, healthy habit that Ronaldo is actually doing. So the next one is the social ecological model. Now, this model helps us to understand factors affecting behavior and also provides guidance for developing successful programs through social environment. Remember, we live in the environment and we have people living in our environment, which constitutes the social environment. Now, this model emphasizes the multiple levels of influence, such as the individual, interpersonal, organizational, community, and public policy, and the idea that behaviors both shape and are shaped by the what social environment. Definitely our environment influences the way we behave. The principles of social ecological models are consistent with social cognitive theory concept, which suggests that creating an environment conducive to change is important in making it easier to adopt healthy behaviors. Okay, so for example, in my family, immediately you come back from wherever you have been to, immediately you come back to the house, you wash your hand, and that is the healthy behavior. You have to wash your hands, okay, before you do anything, and you know that washing of hands prevents a lot of diseases. So it's very easy to actually um take up a healthy behavior. So you have that model there. From the individual constitutes of knowledge, attitude, and skills. Then we have interpersonal, which is the social network. We have the organizational, the environment, and we have cultural values and norms. So it constitutes the community and the actual policy that has been put in place. Now we have other theoretical models. For example, we have the precede proceed model, we have the social support and social networks, we have the stress and coping theories, and we have diffusion of innovation and social marketing. So for further reading, you can check the textbook I sent to you. So and see you in my next class. So that's all for today's lecture video. Remember, if you have any question, leave it in the comment section below, and don't forget to watch the other lecture videos. I have a theme for it, a color code for it. If you go on my channel, you'll see that it's red, okay? And remember, I've created a playlist where you can watch all the other lecture, and this one will be included as well. We have about 1 or 2 lectures to round up this lecture, and I will be seeing you in class physically to revise with you, or we can also revise here, anyone that may happen in future. So thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe as well and click the notification bell to be notified of new posts. See you in my next lecture video. Bye.